Hey, good evening. This is what we're doing this week. I'm kind of stuck at home here with COVID. So when I'm sitting around, I get bored. I can't stand it anymore. My mind cloudy. So I'm going to make it work and do something. So what we're going to do is try and recreate one of my favorite desserts I've ever had. Up in Toronto, we used to order from a place called Dufflet Pastries, and they made the most amazing Cappuccino Dacquois I ever had. We're going to try and recreate it. With that, let's get on with it. To make this dish, what we're going to need is this is the basic equipment you're going to need. Set your oven at 225, and we're going to need a mixer with a wire whip. Set yourself up a double boiler. Make sure it's not touching the bottom of your bowl. And you're going to need your 3 cookie sheets with parchment paper. On the parchment paper, what I do is I just cut them out to the size, and you want them all uniform. So I kind of cheat. I take a bottom of like a springform pan and make a circle on each one. That way they're all going to have the same marking on it. And make sure, flip that paper back over after you mark it so you don't get the ink onto the food. That's your basic equipment we're going to need, so let's move on to what we're going to do. So for this first part, what we're going to do is we're going to start with just some almonds. If you can find hazelnuts, that's what the original recipe calls for, but down here in Arizona, I've done all over, and I have not found anybody with hazelnuts yet. So we're going to substitute and use some almonds in it. We're just going to get a small grinder chopper, about half that bag we want to use. It's a small bag, maybe about a cup and a quarter. And we're just going to grind them up through the finest we can get. And see, we're just grinding them up. That's going to go into our meringue for flavoring. Get that out of the way. Put that to the side. Now we're going to pull our mixer over. A little flour. For the mixer part, we're going to want a wire whisk, but I'm going to leave that out until I'm ready for it, just to give me more room. I'm going to use 18 eggs here to make the meringue, but we want to save the yolks for part of the filling. Part of the filling is going to be a custard. I try to keep my eggs as cool as possible up to the last possible minute. I just find they work better for whipping. You can use whatever recipe if you have your own for meringue. I'm just using this one's a standard meringue recipe. We're just going to crack all them eggs right into that. Also, in this recipe, I'll tell you, it's going to call for a little bit of sugar into the meringue. Be very careful with your sugar because it can break down your meringue. It will generate heat as it's mixing, and that's the enemy. So, so this here, if you ever get to Toronto, it's worth your time to look up Dufflet Pastries and order one of these. I think it's probably the most decadent dessert I've ever had. So hopefully, this will be an attempt worth making, because if we can recreate it, I'll be happy. I've never tried before to recreate this one. I've recreated other ones of theirs, but this is our first attempt. So you're learning with me. Basically, Cappuccino Dacquois is layers of meringue, custard, some whipped cream, and hot fudge. And we're going to decorate it up with some almonds on top as well as the hot fudge. It becomes a nice, delicate layered dessert that you're also going to find is next to impossible to cut. If you have a piano wire or a wire pastry cutter, that's what you're going to want to use. Or you can get a very, very fine chef's knife that's really skinny and a bowl of warm water and a rag. But when we get there, we'll show you what I'm talking about for how to cut it. And there we have our 18 eggs. Give me 1 second here. Get all the junk off my hands. Now, I'm going to add, and I'm just going to do a little confection sugar. I'm thinking maybe a 1/4 cup, nothing more. Get that in there early. And about 1/8 teaspoon of salt, just a little bit. And about 1 1/4 tablespoons cornstarch. This, you don't have to add the cornstarch, but this is a trick to try and keep the egg whites, the meringue, when you're cooking it, from going flat. You want to try and keep it a little bit puffy. And finally, we're going to add 1 1/2 teaspoons of vanilla. Now, we're not going to put our nuts in yet. We're going to fold them in gently at the end. Move our egg yolks out of the way and reserve them for later. We'll attach our wire wisp. We'll start this out a little slow just to get the material moving around so we don't splash everything. And then let's pick it up to a higher level. We want to run that at slow speed, so it starts to form a peak. It usually takes a couple of minutes to do. I don't know if you've ever done it. You just got to watch it until it gets to 6 peaks in it. It'll be a little bit glossy, and it'll be nice and firm with them. It'll take it a minute just to start doing it, and then all of a sudden it just goes really quick once it starts to form. And you already see some transformation going. See the aeration to the outer edges is starting to rip into it. That's what's going to create the meringue. Getting lighter and lighter, that's what we want to see. Well, beautiful, beautiful, there it goes. A lot of things you can do with the meringue. We're using it here to make layers. You can also type it out and make cookies. You can type it into warm milk and let it sit and cook, and they call that floating islands. All the different desserts that you can use it for. Well, you can make your lemon meringue pie as your topping for it. That's getting there. You can see it now. It's starting to thicken out. A little bit more and we'll be good. nice and firm. It's getting there. Looking about. You see how, look at that difference now. Nice and stiff looking. So now we'll shut it down so we don't over whip that. While you're out, now give me 1 minute to move this out of the way to give us some room to work. Now we want to take our almonds we mixed before, and I don't want to put all of it in. We're just going to put probably about half of that, and we're going to fold that in gently. Try not to break stuff down. We just want to fold it in, and that, as the meringue cooks, is going to add flavor to it. Now, as I said before, we got 3 pans going here, and I kind of want to just eyesight this and divide this up right onto your paper. Make it. Got some left over, I'm not too worried about it. I'll put it to use. We're just going to take, try to gently form those circles nice and evenly in thickness. The other thing we want to try and keep track of, is you're going to have to figure out which 2 are going to be your bottom and middle layer. And we want to build, not thick wall, but we want a little indent into them to hold our custards when we do our layers. So we just go around and then try and work out a little bit. So we'll take this one here as one of the bottom layers. And all I'm doing is trying to create that little wall there so custard, when we put it in, doesn't leak out. One. Not getting way too thick. That's what I think we're going to need a little more. So let's put it in right off the bat. Making those circles as even as you can. Try and keep the thicknesses on them all the same too. And this is probably taking a little longer than you would anticipate, but this whole recipe is going to take us couple hours to do this, so we're going to film it in segments because I don't want you to sit and be bored. This one is another one of our bottom or middle layers. Build up that little wall. A little bit indent to the center. And then our last layer. More rounded in this little section there. Here we go. This one being the top layer. We want it nice and as smooth as we can get it without having to make the well so much. Let's get our shape going here. You see those nice almonds in there. As those toast under a low heat, those are going to fill this up with flavor. And this is already going to have a ton of different flavors, as we're going to have also the hot fudge. We're going to have some espresso and the almond. All right. Now, this one, because I want it smoother, I'm going to try. Just level it a little bit here. Let that top be uniform looking, so that when we decorate later, it looks nice. What we're going to do now is these will go into the oven. We're going to put them in for 1 hour, 225, and come back. When that hour's up, we're going to leave them in there. Turn your oven off and let them sit for another hour with the temperature off, cooling. And we'll be back. All right, so what we found is as we're replicating this recipe from scratch, we have to add another hour to the meringue, so we will show that into the recipe that I'll post online later. But instead of 1 hour in the oven, we're going to do 2 hours into it. And while that's going, we'll make our custard filling that's going to go in there, and then we're going to move on and do our whipped cream that's going to go in. So with that, what we want to do is we pulled all our eggs out that we had put into the fridge earlier. We're going to start to break up the yolks a little bit, just to get them started. To the yolks, we're going to add, and get this open, 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. I'm going to add some vanilla to it. Actually, I will do my espresso powder first, seems like it's going to get wet. We want 1 teaspoon espresso powder we're adding right into there. Then we'll put our vanilla. We're going to add a teaspoon of vanilla into this. That, we're going to add 6 tablespoons of sugar. Sweeten that up a bit. Then we're going to add, it's kind of going to be to sight. I'm using, you can use milk, I'm using heavy cream. Either way, you want about 2 cups added into that. We'll give it a good whipping, get it all mixed up nice. And I forgot my pan over here with the water going, where I told you before we're setting up a double boiler for steam. Just on, if you want, put this right over that. And we're going to start heating it up with just the steam. This is you got to watch carefully doing this too, because you want to let it heat, but at the same time, you got to also stir it. You don't want to let it sit too much because it'll cook the eggs instead of turning them creamy. And this is a process that'll take a while to do. It never seems to go quick. You only want your steam on, probably 6 or 7, medium to medium high setting. Watch your fingers. I do have a pad here because this will start to get hot on you. Reach across here. Keeping a spoon handy because that's how we're going to tell when it's where we want it done at, is we're going to see that it coats the spoon nice and heavy. The problem with whipping at the beginning here is you got to kind of remember to go slow down every now and then because it'll keep cooling it down instead of heating. But you can't just let it sit or it will cook it and turn it into a curdle. Now, I wish there was a way to speed this up, but there really isn't. So what we'll do here is I'm just going to keep cooking it a while. We'll cut the tape for a bit so you don't have to sit here and watch for 10 minutes while it does this. Just remember while you're doing yours to just keep stirring it a little bit here and there and then whipping it. And we're going to let that heat start going through it. And we'll be back in about 10 minutes. So we're back, and as you can see, it's starting to thicken up. It's went rather quickly, at least. Usually takes about 10 to 15 minutes. We're at about 10 minutes now, and you can see it's starting to get nice and thicker in there. Now we don't want to stop whipping. We want to make sure we're scraping the edges and constantly whipping it as we try and get it to the texture we want, the thickness. This is very tiring on your arm. Almost there. Almost. I'm going to get it just about done without it curdling, and then we're going to put it in the fridge, and it'll finish cooking and setting up on its own. See that nice thick consistency it's building. The water's getting hot, that steam coming out. Now I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to the edges of this because that's where it's going to tell me it's getting overcooked. It'll start to, if it gets too much, you'll notice it'll start looking like scrambled eggs forming. So we want to stop just before that point. I think we're just about where we're going to want to be. Right about there, I think we're done. So we're going to pull that off the steam and let it finish on its own. With that, I'm going to put that in the fridge. You can see it's got a nice thick consistency to it. That'll finish itself off as it cools. And we'll be right back to do the whipped cream for it. So while we're waiting for our meringues to finish up, the next part we're going to do is we're going to get our whipped cream done for it. And for that, what we want is we're going to use a pint or 2 cups heavy cream. Put that right back into your stand mixer. I always chill it as much as I can. I find much better results that way. I want to put in about a 1/4 cup powdered sugar. I don't want to go too much more than that. Let's get it too sweet. In fact, a lot of times I won't even put this much in. Next, want to add a tablespoon baking cocoa. Oh, of course, I grabbed the one that isn't open. It is now. And then about a half a teaspoon of vanilla. Once again, this is another one. You're going to start this off a little bit slow just to get it mixing so you don't splatter yourself. As it gets going, then you can turn it up. Got that getting good and wet. I'm going to take a second and wipe down that, make sure my sides so I don't have all the sugar and cocoa up there, because I want to give it time to mix in and get nice and soft. This is one that'll suddenly just be ready. You'll watch it, it'll take a couple of minutes to get going, and then it'll just suddenly be done. Just want to keep it going on high. Like I said, I keep everything chilled. I even chilled the bowls that time. If I'm in warm weather especially, I'll put the bowl in the freezer and let it chill before I do this, just to speed the process up. As you can see, it's already starting to thicken up this quick. If you're not sure if it's going to thicken or not, just let it keep going. I mean, you'll know it'll suddenly just become thicker and do it really quick. Sometimes it takes a little longer, sometimes it'll go real fast. It's got a nice cocoa color coming to it right now. Yeah, it's just about done. Another one you don't want to overdo, because if you go too long, it will break it back down. Let's get a taste. Nice, very nice. We'll be back, and hopefully we'll be ready to assemble everything at that time. All right, so now we're at the final part where we're going to construct everything. First thing I want to do is we're going to create our glaze that's going on the top. I'm just taking some hot fudge. We'll put that into a double boiler to start softening it. You just kind of measure it by eye what you think you're going to need. I don't have any set amount. I'm guessing about a half cup of both that. And I'm going to put in some Nutella to give it a nice chocolatey hazelnut taste. And I just want equal parts of each. Now once that starts softening, I'll have to stir it occasionally because we don't want it to break down. The first thing I want to do is we're going to take, I've already put one of the pieces here, we're getting it set up to decorate. We're going to take our custard that we already put in the fridge and cooled, and we're just going to whip it up a little to get that crusty part gone. And we're going to start by putting that right onto the layers. This is probably, you'll see, you're going to end up probably breaking them. Well, that's not a problem. You just don't want it to break it into 1,000 pieces. We can spread that out probably about 1/8 of an inch thick evenly throughout that. And look at that nice color to it. That's from the espresso we added. Next, we're going to go in and we're going to put some of the heavy cream that we whipped up. Now this is a little bit different trying to spread it because it's going to want to pull stuff. So you just put it in there, move it around a little, try not to mess everything up. Now we ended up at about an hour and a half on these meringues to get them where we wanted them. You know that's going to want to squeeze out when we go to do this, so we don't want to get it too far off to the edges, but we also don't want any bare spot. Nice and even there. There's one layer. Now, I'll show you how to get these off the paper. I already took the other one off, but you just push your way around gently. Don't force anything, it will come off. Let's set our next one on there. Same thing again. What we're going to do. Here, put that together a little bit. See, this is where those ridges were for. This one here, I think I'm going to have to push down also, just like the last one at that spot. Just a little bit. A little bit more up in here, keep it nice and even. Stir here because we don't want it to break down. It's going to be nice and evenly mixed and warm. We'll come back in here with the second layer. Advantage to me being a cook, I get to taste everything. There's your second layer. And now we're going to come in with our top layer. Top layer is going to be the easiest one. All this one's going to get is a coating of this fudge. And spread this around. Try and get as far out as we can. Now, any extra we have, we'll just go around, maybe drizzle a little to the edges. I don't think you can have too much fudge. That's our fudge. And with that now, we're going to come back in with the nuts we have that we reserved. Let's just sprinkle some of them onto that fudge. Well, if you wanted, you could take some of this leftover frost, whipped cream, and you could do little rosettes or something on it if you wanted. But to me, that's all I'm doing right there. Simplicity. Ladies and gentlemen, that would be the Cappuccino Dacquois. This is what you would cut this with. This is a piano wire. You can buy these at either Joann's, Walmart, any restaurant store. Get these a nice bowl of warm water and a rag, wipe it real quick, and you just saw through that, and it'll cut nice and easily. If you can't find one of these, find a knife like this that's really thin, and do the same thing with warm water and a rag. Get a good warm wet, wipe it down, and then do your cut. Each time you cut, though, you have to do that again, or it's just going to shatter everything. I hope you enjoy this and take the time to make it. And have a great night and Happy New Year.